Good evening, everyone. Let me know if you can see me. Hopefully we don't have any technical difficulties tonight. I know on Sunday we had a few, and hopefully the lighting's a little bit better this time. Um, we're grateful for you joining with us tonight, and know that things have been out of the ordinary, and to try and resume uh, some level of continuity in our Bible studies on Wednesday nights that we've been participating in for a long time now. So we're going to try and keep that continuity alive. We're definitely using tools and resources we're not super familiar with, so thankful for what we have, and perhaps desperate times push us into the 21st century a little bit more. Um, it was a great day today, and I hope that you spent time outside with the people that you have been locked up with in your jail cells of your homes. I hope that you're staying safe, and I hope that you're staying healthy. Tonight we're talking about, and I want to do this with every video, is just kind of focus on one thing. I don't want us to go into the Greek. I know that those members at Taylorsville Road would love for me to do that, and always probably get a little bit anxious about me doing that. But let's consider just one thing tonight so we can be encouraged, that we can be uplifted, that we can, again, find some resolve to face the difficulties that we are facing. Tonight we're thinking about hope. And if you've been watching the news at all, if you have been on social media, you probably need a good, healthy dose of hope right now. I know that I do. I know that when we watch those sorts of things, and when that input becomes almost oppressive, it makes us to feel that we are hopeless, that we're in a hopeless situation. And hopefully we as Christians have been conducting ourselves in such a way that we bring light to those who are in darkness. And we want to encourage, and we want to strengthen, we want to uplift, we want to offer something that the world does not have to offer. And the reality is that Christians have a hope to offer that nothing else or no one else can offer. And so we have something much better than a medication. We have a greater prognosis, regardless of what we might face in this life. And so to think about hope definitely will be uplifting, especially for a Christian. But as we reflect upon not only our hope and building our hope and strengthening our hope, we want to help build other people's hope too, not to give them a false sense of security or hope, but to give them a true anchor for the soul. And thinking about that, hope being an anchor for the soul is such an important idea for the Bible. It actually comes from the book of Hebrews chapter 6, verses 13 through 20. We read about Abraham and God's dealing with Abraham. Now, 4,000 years ago, God was dealing with Abraham when he was doing something, accomplishing something that the world could not appreciate and it could not understand. And so over 4 millennia later, we find ourselves looking to Abraham and looking to God's activities in the life of Abraham and building hope for him. And Hebrews tells us that that is a part of our hope too. So though we are separated by a lot of time, we definitely have the same hope that Abraham had. And part of that was hope in the resurrection. And part of that transcended the world that we have. And so let's read Hebrews 6, 13 through 20 just real quick. And we'll probably bring up a few other passages, but this really will be our passage that we anchor with. So Hebrews 6, verse 13 says, "For when God made the promise to Abraham, since he could swear by no one greater, he swore by himself, saying, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply you. And so having patiently waited, he obtained the promise. For men swear by one greater than themselves, and with them an oath given as confirmation is an end of every dispute. In the same way, God desired even more to show to the heirs of the promise the unchangeable of his purpose interposed with an oath, so that by two unchangeable things, in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have taken refuge would have strong encouragement to take hold of the hope set before us. This hope we have as an anchor of the soul, a hope both sure and steadfast, and one which enters within the veil, where Jesus has entered as a forerunner for us, having become a high priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, this is a hope that Christians have. Not everybody has this hope. Christians have this hope. And so if we're in the right position before God, if we're in a right relationship with God, we have a hope that pulls us outside of any toil, any turmoil, any trial, any tribulation that we might face. We have the ultimate answer to whatever may face us. Hope is the key to our lives, and hope gives us stability in the storms that we may face. And let's think for a minute about the core nature of the Christian's hope. Hope is the earnest desire for something perceived as good. Now, for Christians, we are desiring something that is objectively good, not just something that we perceive to be good, but something that we know is good, something that has been established as good independent of ourselves. And so the object of a Christian's hope is the enjoyment of God in this life and throughout eternity. Peter gives us a description of this hope, and he calls it a living hope. A living hope. Sometimes we talk about false hope. I think false hope would be the idea of a dead hope, something that would be an expectation, but not something that would eventually culminate as a reality. And that's another aspect of hope. Living hope is in regards to a future good, and the object of hope has to be attainable. Otherwise, it is hopeless. You have to be able to obtain it. And so we may hope for something within our reach that has difficulties in acquiring, and in fact, our hope should be in regards to those things that have difficulty. But that's still hope. The Christian's hope of eternal life is built on a foundation that cannot fail. God will reward his people. God will reward a faithful person, a hopeful person, with the realization of that which was hoped for. God has promised, and he cannot lie. God has sworn with an oath by his name, and there is no greater name than that. And so what God has promised is attainable. To transcend from this reality, which is fraught with plagues, which is fraught with viruses, which is fraught with death and turmoil and destruction, we can transcend that. And so we have a hope. So what characterizes hope? Well, when we think about hope being an anchor, as the Hebrews writer called it, there is something that connects the anchor to the ship, and that is a chain. So the question that I guess we have to answer is what is the chain that connects hope to our ship? Well, I would suggest to you that faith is the chain that connects the anchor to our ship. That faith and hope are that which keep us grounded, that which keep us steady, that which keep us focused in the storms of life upon God, who cannot lie, the very one who could walk upon waters, the very one who holds all the waters of the earth in the palm of his hand. And so amidst storms, amidst temptation, trial, and distress, hope keeps us confident. It gives us a grounds for our hope. In fact, Job, when he was suffering as an individual, he suggested this idea in Job 19:25. Job 19:25, he talked about his hope being upon eternal things, the hope that a Messiah would intercede on his behalf. Even when Paul faced execution in 2 Timothy, he talks about a hope that he has, a hope of gaining the presence of God, one that is absolutely anchored to his soul. So hope depends upon its vigor, Hope depends upon a sound and a strong faith. And so the question is that if you feel hopeless right now, perhaps the anchor has become detached from your ship. Perhaps your faith is not getting the development that it needs to cling to that anchor of hope. Those being two of the key virtues. And the third of those virtues, of course, being love. Love is intimately tied to hope as well. An anchor must be used. Most ships, all ships, ideally have an anchor. But the anchor has to be used. Just because it's sitting there doesn't mean that it is being effective. And so a Christian has a hope that needs to be used, and needs to be exercised, and needs to be shown to others so that others can have that hope as well. Otherwise, it's just a pile of rust. Otherwise, it's just something to trip on the deck of your ship. We want a full and vigorous hope. We want a hope based upon God's grace, based upon God's faithfulness. Our hope must never be half-hearted. It should be wholehearted. And such comes from a knowledge of God's word, because God has demonstrated repeatedly that there is hope in whatever situation you might face. Jeremiah, from the pits of a well, had hope in God. Job had hope. Abraham had hope against hope, faith against faith. That even though he was aged, even though it was physically impossible for him to have a son and for Sarah to have a son, they had a child. God gives hope. God takes hopeless situations, strengthless situations, and transforms them. He gives an anchor when the seas are raging. Hope is vitally important. We cannot overemphasize the importance of hope, especially at times like this where hopelessness is being fomented from every corner, from every outlet. We have hopelessness being thrown at us, and Satan's stoking that fire. We have to develop our character and develop ourselves in such a way that when we face trial, our hope grounds our souls. Our hope grounds our spirits. Hope for God's blessings will restrain us from giving into those temptations that we face in this hour, specific to the spread of this virus. And when a situation arises where there might appear to be advantages in sinning, our hope to see his face in joy keeps us from giving in. The hope of a Christian causes his character to improve. And again, as we look into the world right now, we don't see character improving by and large. But we as Christians have to have our character being developed and our hope being developed so that we can help transform other people by the renewing of their minds. Christians have a hope that they will be born again. And such hope is vital to our labors in Christ. It's so important for us. Our faith is in the power of the gospel, that all who believe, all who call upon the name of the Lord shall be saved. And that is an eternal and living hope, one that is anchored by the fact that God has given us everything pertaining to life and godliness. And so all that we do must be done in hope. It is hope that brightens the eyes. It is hope that strengthens the arms. It is hope that energizes the feet to be doing what God wills us to be doing. Therefore, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that your labor in the Lord is not in vain in the Lord. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us going even though we are quarantined. That's what keeps us going even though we can't meet together, because we love each other so much that we are trying to protect each other. That's what keeps us anchored. It is hope that puts sweetness into our lives when all around us is bitter. When the journey gets tedious, the cup becomes bitter, it is hope that adds sweetness. And how important it is that our hope keeps aflame so that nothing can defeat us. The Christians who were facing trial and persecution specifically, they were told that they were going to be tested for 10 days. And certainly the persecution of Christians lasted a lot longer. The persecution of Christians lasted a lot longer than that. The persecution of Christians lasted a lot longer than that. Sorry, I think the camera cut out. Persecution lasted a lot longer than 10 days. But what God was telling those Christians is that this trial is temporary. And 2,000 years later, we find ourselves with that same assurance from God. This trial is temporary. We have hope. Not just in the eternal, but in the fact that God cares, and in the fact that Jesus is resurrected from the dead, and that he is the great physician, one who can bring healing, one who can bring satisfaction, one who can bring contentment, one who can help us through. Because our hope is certain. As Hebrews chapter 6 tells us, it is both sure and steadfast. It is certain. There can be no doubt. It is firm. The Christian's hope cannot fail, for it is not based on earthly things. Earthly things fail. Earthly values fail. God's values remain. God's things remain. We have our hope built upon heavenly assurances. We have our hope built upon the one who cannot lie. The Christian's hope cannot fail unless the truthfulness of God fails, and we know that God's truthfulness will not fail. Therefore, our hope should not fail. God has spoken truth. God does not and cannot change. And so our hope is built upon God's promise, not people's fantasies. Our hope cannot fail unless God's truthfulness fails. Our hope cannot fail unless God can fail and God can lose his power. Our hope cannot fail. The giver of the promises is the being whose infinite resources and omniscience and his acquaintance with our needs makes his promises assured. Remember Abraham. Abraham's hope was grounded and steadfast because he believed God can do what he promises. In fact, he didn't waver at all. Romans chapter 4 tells us, not in regards to that promise. He wondered how it would be accomplished, but he knew it would be accomplished. We may not understand how God is going to accomplish deliverance and salvation for the people of this world. He may deliver us in life, and he may deliver us through death. But one thing we know for sure, he will deliver. One thing we know for sure, our hope is grounded. Be assured in your hope of salvation if you are in a right relationship with God. If you are not, I will not pretend to give you a false hope, but I will tell you this, you can have hope. You absolutely can have hope. And it doesn't matter what you have done in the past. It doesn't matter what things you will have to change in the present. You can have hope. Because God sent his only Son to die for you, to deliver you, to give you hope. And obedient believers cannot be lost unless Christ refuses his covenant. He is an advocate for his people. He is an eternity at the side of his people. And so let those who are hopeless come to the Lord. Let those who are hopeless see that the gospel delivers. And let us always be confident that God has ample grace to give us hope to all who receive the word implanted. We must have faith, as Tom, you pointed out. We're either all in or we have no faith. We're either all in regards to our hope, or we should not have a hopeful expectation of good things. We have to have faith, hope, and love, the great triad of virtues, the ones that God has given us a right to have. And so if we can help you in any way during what seems and what is defined by this world and the people of this world as a hopeless situation, we want to give you hope. And God has that hope. So let's talk. If you have any needs, we would absolutely be thrilled to speak with you. If you'd message us or you'd contact me directly, I would love to talk about the hope that Christians have and how we can share that hope and bring a newness and a vitality, an encouragement, an anchor for the soul in this time where the seas are so distressed and where the people are so scattered and so violent and so opposed. So let's talk about hope. Reach out to us. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope to have another message for you on Friday. Andrew and I are going to be having a discussion about where is God in the midst of all of this. And so we hope that you will join us on Friday morning. We'll put an announcement up about that. We hope that you'll join us on Friday morning if you can, or check out a page afterwards so that you can view that video as well. And then on Sunday, Lord willing, although we will be quarantined, we hope to offer another message of encouragement to you. Talk to you guys later. Enjoy, stay safe, stay healthy.